Plano, Texas, 1989. 46-year-old Ronald Williamson lies dead by the phone, shot in the head. Just 4 minutes earlier, he had called police about his missing girlfriend, 26-year-old Tracy Wallace. She's just feet away, but she's been shot and concealed in a closet. According to the courts, this man killed them both. Their housemate, 20-year-old Charles Dean Hood. He's sentenced to death. Hood says he's innocent. For 24 years, he's been fighting his conviction. He's escaped the executioner an astonishing 6 times. Charles Dean Hood has a story that just won't die. A twisted tale of good times, strip clubs, drug deals, and judicial corruption. Is it believable? At the Estelle Unit in Huntsville, Texas, I've come to find out. I'm Candace DeLong. As an FBI agent, I worked on the front line for the world's most powerful law enforcement agency. I went undercover, I trailed terrorists, and I interviewed notorious killers. It's my job to understand the people who others cannot comprehend.
Anybody home?
At precisely 11:53 a.m. on November 1st, 1989, businessman Ronald Williamson calls 911. He thinks his house has been burgled, and he's found a strange note from his girlfriend saying she's out jogging. But her name is misspelled, and she doesn't jog. Police get there at lightning speed in just 4 minutes. But between Ron putting down the phone and police walking in, Ron is killed. Shot once in the back of the head. Police also find the body of Ron's missing girlfriend folded in a closet. Police want to talk to their roommate, but he doesn't show up for work that day. When Charles Hood is tracked down, he's driving Ron's luxury car and using Ron's credit cards. His fingerprints are found in one of the victim's blood at the scene. The police and later a grand jury are convinced they have their man. Charles Hood has spent half his life insisting they are wrong. I'm going to ask him for the truth. Charles, thank you for sitting down with me.
Yes.
You've been in prison pretty much your entire adult life.
Correct.
Serving time for 2 murders back in 1989.
Yes.
Let's go back before that. What kind of relationship did you have with your dad? How would you characterize it?
Up and down. I wasn't the one who minded all the time, so I remember my dad told me as I got older, he says, if you're gonna live underneath this roof, then you need to obey by these rules or go. So I knew I couldn't do that. So I remember when I first left home, I was 15 years old.
Charles leaves the nest early, but 15-year-old boys who don't play by their father's rules aren't likely to play by society's rules either. When you were a teenager, according to some reports I read, you were getting in a little bit of trouble with the law.
It wasn't nothing to hurt nobody. It was just out having a good time. Now when you grow up, you think about, well, yeah, the things I did back then, I regret because they were stupid.
Charles serves time for vandalism, theft, and forgery in Indiana. Then moves to Texas and meets 46-year-old divorced man Ron Williamson. Ron has a generous reputation. His successful computer business gives him the freedom to help people. According to Charles, Ron isn't so much a father figure, but a playmate. Describe Ronald to me. What kind of guy was he?
A 20-year-old man trapped in a 46-year-old body.
Meaning?
Meaning we just hit it right off, you know. He was a millionaire. He had a yacht, all these expensive cars, his own home and everything, his own business.
The two met at a strip club. Charles was a bouncer, Ron, a patron.
He would come in and he'd stuff $100 bills down my pocket. He said, hey, watch out for me tonight. Make sure I get to my car.
Stuff $100 bills down your pocket.
All the gentlemen who did that.
That was common?
Yeah, very common.
Sounds like a good job.
It was paid a lot of money.
Ron's generosity extends to more than great tips. He opens his house to his new friend. How did you come to move in with him?
I was staying in an apartment, and we were out on the yacht one day, and he said, hey, you can come stay with me. I got all these rooms, you know.
In 1989, Charles Hood, then just 20 years old, starts a friendship with wealthy businessman Ron Williamson. 46-year-old Ron invites Charles to live with him, along with Ron's girlfriend. She's a performer at the strip club, 26-year-old Tracy Wallace. How did you feel about Tracy?
She was a really nice person. I mean, I got along with her. I worked with her.
Did you have any special feelings for her? Did you want to be...
It was platonic. It was just friends.
Some have suggested Charles had a thing for Tracy, that he was jealous of her relationship with Ron. But as Charles tells it, the only jealousy was from Tracy's former boyfriend, who he says was using Tracy to traffic drugs.
He was very jealous. I had to pull him off Ron one time. And he slapped Ron in the face when they were scuffling.
And Ron, because of jealousy, rage?
That and the money for the drugs. She owed a lot of money to a dope dealer. So Ron had got her out of jail, was trying to get her clean from that, and she owed this dope dealer a lot of money. So Ron was trying to pay that off before something would happen to her.
At the time of her death, Tracy was on probation for delivery of cocaine. According to Charles, she still had debts with her former boyfriend. And he says that's why Tracy and Ron were killed. They ran afoul of drug dealers. Charles says he saw the killers the morning of the murders. What time did you leave the house that morning?
It was around 8. When I left that house that morning, there was a red Corvette outside. And there was 2 men sitting in that car. And I already knew whose car it was. So I figured they were just waiting on Ron.
Oh. At 8 in the morning?
Dope dealers don't have a time.
During my time working with the DEA, I learned that drug dealers rarely make early morning visits. But I guess it's possible. With Ron already at work and Charles out of the house, that leaves only Tracy inside. Were they coming to get her? Almost 4 hours later,
Anybody home?
Ron returns home for lunch. He doesn't find Tracy, only a note. Tell me about what happened. He came into the house and he found a note?
So he found a note, yes.
And what did the note say?
It said Tracy went jogging or something in that return.
Tracy went jogging. But Tracy's name is misspelled. She uses an IE instead of a Y. And jogging wasn't her thing. Ron smells a rat.
What I know is he called several people, is what I heard through the records. Mm-hmm. And my attorney said he called several people, then he called 911.
Called 911, why?
Because he felt his girlfriend was abducted.
Mm-hmm. And so he thought maybe the dope dealer had kidnapped her?
Yes.
Just before noon, November 1st, 1989.
Anybody home?
Businessman Ron Williamson comes home for lunch to find his girlfriend missing and a suspicious note. At 11:53 a.m., he dials 911. But a recording of that call captures another voice in the background. Police think it was housemate Charles Hood, who was later convicted of double murder. Charles is telling me he wasn't there.
I was in Louisville.
Louisville is how far from where Ron's home was?
It was more than 4 minutes, I would say. It'd take you at least 15 to 20 minutes to get there, or more.
When Ron came home for lunch, you were not there?
Nope.
Some people said that's your voice.
Some people said no. But all I know is I pleaded with my attorneys at that time to get a voice analysis to prove, hey, that I wasn't there at the time.
The recording is not a matter of public record, but it was played to Ron's son, who positively identified the second voice as that of Charles Dean Hood. 4 minutes later, according to police records, the police arrived.
Yes.
And what did they find?
They come around the back, they said, and they saw Ron laying in the kitchen.
Only 4 minutes after he calls 911 to report Tracy is missing and he's worried about her, the police get there and he's dead on the kitchen floor? Ron has a single gunshot wound to his head from a .38 caliber pistol. Shortly after, they find Tracy, also shot. Her body hidden in a closet with gym equipment up against the door. They also find a wall safe pried open. Some cash and jewelry are missing. Police ultimately conclude it's all the work of housemate Charles Hood. That he's jealous of Ron's lifestyle, the girls, the money, the success. So he takes it all. He kills Tracy in a bedroom, then moves her body into the closet. When Ron comes home unexpectedly, he shoots him. Takes the loot and flees in Ron's car. Charles claims that's impossible.
Well, to kill her, remove her from the one bedroom, all the way across the house, no bloody fingerprints, nowhere in the bedroom, and to stuff her behind a 6-foot water heater, it would take more than one person.
Charles's prints were not found in the bedroom, but they were found almost everywhere else. In the processing of the crime scene, your fingerprints are found. Of course, you lived there, so that would be expected. But some of your prints were found in the victim's blood.
No.
What do you say to that?
Let me explain that.
Sure.
Because I tried to get all this analyzed too. Because my fingerprints were everywhere in the house. Even on the weight machine, they said they found blood on. Just because your fingerprints is on something, a surface, and blood gets put on that, it doesn't make it a bloody fingerprint.
Well, there's a way for forensic examiners to determine...
And they never did that.
...if it's blood on top of an old fingerprint or a fresh fingerprint in blood.
Let me see how... This is what they did.
Okay.
They brought a fingerprint expert into the courtroom, the DA's office. He stood on the stand. He looked at a few cards and looked at something else with a little eyeglass and said, that's Mr. Hood's fingerprints. There was no testing done in no lab or nothing. There was no difference between a blood splatter fingerprint and a regular fingerprint. He did everything on a stand by a couple cards. Mm-hmm. That's all they did. My attorneys would not get an expert. The DA did not send out to a lab or nothing. All they did was right on the stand. And that's the God's truth. They did it right there on the stand.
Even if the bloody fingerprints are disputed, Charles's prints on the note and on items in the wall safe are hard to ignore. And then there's the checks that Charles cashed the day of the murders. The police say those checks that you cashed were forged.
Right.
What do you say to that?
They're lying.
They're lying? Did they do a handwriting sample analysis on... Did they ever ask you for your handwriting?
Nope.
Another incriminating fact Charles disputes is why he was driving Ron's new Cadillac.
Prior to that day, Mr. Williamson had already knew that I was going to go home and visit my brother. He loaned me his car to do so because I was going to take an airplane or a bus.
He knew you were going to visit your brother.
Yes.
And he loaned you his car.
Yeah.
How many cars did he have?
At that time, he had 3.
Okay, so he loaned you one of his cars.
One of his cars.
Police reports indicate that while Ron did give Charles permission to drive one of his cars, it was not the new Caddy. The evidence against you, physical evidence and circumstantial evidence, was rather profound and some would say overwhelming.
And I actually think if that evidence was brought to light and they really did test it, then they would show their fabrication in this
So you're
evidence.
saying that you believe the evidence was not tested that would have proved that you were not the
Would
killer?
prove. Exactly.
In 1990, a mountain of evidence helps convict Charles Dean Hood for the murder of his housemates. Ronald Williamson and Tracy Wallace. But for 24 years, Charles has been fighting for his life on death row, dodging 6 execution dates. He says new forensic testing will set him free. Why do you think the state wouldn't want to test evidence? Do you think they have an interest in putting the wrong people in prison?
This state does not like to admit they're wrong. So if you actually got somebody locked up and they're innocent, and now you go back and test this and say, well, yeah, this, then you got a man locked up. You've only almost killed this guy 6 times.
There's something else clouding this case. Alleged judicial misconduct revealed almost 20 years later. The judge and the prosecuting attorney were having an affair at the time of the trial. Possible grounds for a retrial.
I mean, you got to realize that when I went to court, Miss DeLong, I was going to court with a corrupt judge and a corrupt DA. Because her lover, which is the DA at that time, just lost a murder case and pushed me forward. Knowing that this is her lover, she's going to do everything she can to make sure he gets a conviction.
Was it known at the time?
Everybody knew it.
Did you know it?
No.
I mean, that's pretty serious. A criminal judge hearing a case and having an affair with the prosecutor.
It's downright unethical.
Charles's attorney asked for a retrial, but was denied by the court. Did you kill your friend Ron?
No, I did not.
Did you kill your friend Tracy?
No, I did not.
So why, in 2013, did Charles change his original plea of not guilty to guilty?
I just did that to regroup.
What does
When
that
I
mean?
say
You
regroup-
did it to regroup. What does that mean?
What I did was I broke the monotony. I got tired of sitting in the county. I got tired of listening to people say they were going to do this and do that. They didn't do it.
So you pled guilty to a double homicide?
Yes.
By pleading guilty, Charles saved his life. He's off death row, where he made macabre history as the only man in Texas scheduled to die twice in the same day.
They really tried. I came within 15 minutes. And I tell people this. I saw death, and death wore a pair of cowboy boots.
Now his guilty plea gives him the chance of parole. Charles could be free for his 60th birthday. If you could give one piece of advice to people watching this show, what would it be, based on your experience?
Something's wrong, say something. I made some bad choices in my life. You know, every day I live with the fact that, hey, Mr. Williamson got killed and Tracy got killed. I live with that. It never escapes my mind. I can't go nowhere and it's not in my mind. But the choices I made of hanging out with those people, seeing that, and not only observing it, but basically putting myself in them with it and saying it's okay, which was wrong.
Sounds like you're saying you put yourself kind of in the hornet's nest and you got stung.
And I got stung.
Only Charles knows the true nature of that hornet's nest. He has spent 24 years maintaining his innocence. But the mysterious drug dealers weren't caught with the victim's valuables. Charles was. And if there are any unanswered questions over